Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about 3 things I want in patch 0.5. It's time to get stoked, everybody, because we are about to witness the endgame rework for Path of Exile 2. And this is something that I've been looking forward to a lot. And all my suggestions here are going to be endgame related. If you don't know, on the 7th of May, there's going to be the reveal from GGG, and then there's going to be a 3-week gap and the actual leak drops on the 29th. So just so you're aware, there's obviously a lot more things you could nitpick about the game right now, but in terms of what I care about right now, I care about that the end game is tidied up, that I have fun doing the end game farming loop, and that is about it, right? Like I'm totally fine with theory crafting right now. It's not perfect. Nothing is. It's fine. I just want there to be a stable thing I can farm and sink my hours into. Now, number 1, this is where I'm going to start, is they need to change the way they approach layouts and make them more efficient. Now, you might think that's an odd thing to put at the start. Wouldn't the Atlas be more prescient or whatever? Well, kind of, but also if you look back, a lot of the problems that people had and the solutions they had to come up with, they all stem from layouts just being vast and hard to traverse and not that intuitive. They introduced sprinting to get through the gaps where nothing's happening. They had to introduce checkpoints that you can TP through within one zone. And they even had to redo the way that the Atlas works with having to kill all rares because it was just too tedious. Because finding the boss turns out to be a lot easier than actually traversing the whole map and finding the rares. Layouts even creep into gameplay feel where a lot of people feel slow, and I personally think that that can also have to do with the layouts being too big. It's not just how fast you are, it's how fast you are relative to your surroundings and how big your surroundings are. And just to be clear, I don't just mean for layouts to be smaller, I mean for them to be more distinguished. So I mean stuff like landmarks, just anything that you can orient yourself with. And as an example here, I want to put a map called Augury. And a lot of you guys will be familiar with this one, but just to show you that I don't just mean a good map. I don't want every map to look like a straight line and there's nothing to think about. That is not what I mean. I took Augury because it has a very distinguished layout. You kind of put the thing in the pedestal, there's like one on each side, and there's the boss in the middle. It is easy to understand. After you've done it a few times, you kind of know where everything is, and you know where you are in relation to the boss. And there are layouts like this, right, in the game right now. There's just a lot of fat to trim, and I hope they can do that in this patch with the endgame rework. And that perfectly feeds into my second point, which is give us more agency in endgame. And the reason why layouts are as talked about as they are is because you kind of have to run them all. Like it's not that you can really skip them or reroll them on the Atlas currently. So whereas, for example, in PoE 1, there's a lot of really shitty layouts that you only have to do once. They are more distinguished, I would argue, but you can just run them once for the unlock and then never look at them again. In PoE 2, every layout matters. And this kind of seems like a curse for the game right now, where every layout will be ran multiple times. So if there's a bad one, if there's an odd one out, if there's some fat to trim, we will all feel it. So all in all, what I mean with agency is give us a way to semi-engage with what maps we're running and give us a way to reroll it sometimes. I understand that you cannot do this 100% like in PoE 1 where you just spam one map, because Path of Exile 2 wants to have this kind of roguelike aesthetic, which makes sense. But this would also have implications for both build making and farming strategies. Because guess what? If you have more agency over what layouts you're running, you can also engage with certain league mechanics more efficiently, and it just feels good. For example, when you in Path of Exile 1, certain strategies are really good in City Square or in Strand or in Dunes. That it all kind of fades away right now because you cannot really choose what you're running. And it makes it hard to specialize in one mechanic. You obviously still do because there's not much else to do, but it would be nice. And even builds, when it comes to stuff like walls, your skills interacting with walls, ricocheting off of walls, there is builds that are better indoors, builds that are better outdoors, AoE versus projectiles that bounce off of walls. So yeah, in general, I just don't see any downside to this. Now, next I have the Atlas passive tree rework here. We already had Mark talk about this in length, and it seems like he agrees.
I opened that tree yesterday and I was like, oh, this sucks.
It's a little tragic.
It sucks.
And the reason I put this in agency is this where they could make a progression-worthy system where you actually feel like you're completing stuff And for example, if you could make it so every map, every shitty layout actually gives you one passive point and feeds towards something and leads towards something, and it feels meaningful enough, then that's a great thing. As well as that, a lot of these mechanics are just jumbled around, like essences and strongboxes are in here, but then breach has its own category. Everybody gets all of these points. There's no choice really to be made here. And so I'm 99.9% sure this one will get reworked, so I won't talk about this too long, but I think the Atlas passive tree is kind of like the glue that holds everything together. Speaking of agency, it would be really nice for them to remove rarity from gear and make like a sub-tree, something that is tied towards your progression that gives you back that rarity, and maybe make it a choice. For example, more chance to find normal items, more chance to find this, more chance to find that, and that would be quite interesting for gearing, because right now, especially with stuff like Ritualist, it is very stifling to have rarity in the game in its current form, and that would also lead into agency, because then I have more agency on my character to do whatever I want with those stats. The problem right now, obviously, if they removed rarity, would be that there's not that many exciting modifiers on gear, but my question is, why not? There's a lot of exciting stuff that we could have on gear besides just damage or defense, which is stuff like AoE, prot speed, or even percentage life, which is obviously defense. But whatever scarce stats you could put here, it does not have to be rarity. And it would really free up a lot of your gear slots as well and give you a lot more agency. Now, I saved the best one for last, which is the Atlas itself. And with the Atlas, I mean especially this layout right here. See, I have played a lot of ARPGs in my life, a lot of them. I feel very strongly about what you see right now on the screen. This like mesh of colors, this mesh of these like dotted lines, it does not make sense to my eyes. And like I said, I've seen a lot, right? Like pattern recognition and whatnot. It is confusing as hell. We're not even going to talk about all of these other functionalities yet. But just on an overview level, I feel overwhelmed by this basically immediately. Now, I'm obviously not a map designer, but you can go to the doctor's office and say, it hurts here, please do something about it, without knowing what's going on. It feels wrong to me. I feel like a stomach, like a thing in my stomach churn whenever I look at this. It doesn't feel right. The colors, it's a little much. In Path of Exile 2, a lot of the things they do is more visually appealing than actually practical, which makes sense in a lot of ways, and they can put that in certain ways. But when it comes to this endgame layout that we will engage with daily, multiple times, over and over and over, I think practicality has to be the number one. And if they don't want to do like a boring top-down version that is a lot easier to navigate, then they will have to think about something, because I don't think this is it right now. It has to be a little bit more streamlined, possibly top-down. And yeah, that's all I have to say about this. How they tackle this problem, I'm not really sure, but it hurts here. On top of that, we need better navigation tools. Whether they figure this thing out or not, the current way of doing it is awkward as hell. Sometimes it bugs out. Bookmarks are not enough. They have to think about other ways to engage with this, because this is vast. If you just go into one direction and you play for 2 to 3 days, you know what I mean. There has to be a little bit more logic to this than that. And lastly, I would like them to be a little bit more playful with this Atlas. They have this system that is clearly wanting to be different than Path of Exile 1, but in a lot of ways, it just falls back to the same narrative, just worse, which it doesn't have to be. This gives them to freedom to experiment. For example, with the Infinite Atlas, do like a board game approach. Why can't you get an action point after each map, let's say, and you can jump over layouts? That would also solve the layout issues in an indirect way. They could award you action points after you completed a map boss, or for certain bosses, maybe you get multiple ones. Jump over a map is like the most bare bones. Whatever you could think of in a board game could also be a thing here. If they want to be distinct from Path of Exile 1, which by the way, I agree with, I think it's a win-win for everybody. And ARPGs have played around with this in the past. Even stuff like Wolfson, they tried to do like a city builder, pretty not the most competent way to do it, but it was an interesting idea. I really want them to experiment here a little bit more. And that's about all I got for the 3 biggest things that I want from this endgame rework. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of balancing issues right now in the game that they will address over time. For me personally, the reason I don't give feedback about that every single league is because I want a fun gameplay loop first. I want to wake up and be drawn towards my PC. I just want to game all day and just, yeah, get into that runner's high. And also balancing stuff right now is pretty harsh because new classes come out, new ascendancies come out, and they will redefine what is strong and what is weak and like in relation to each other every single time that happens. So every single patch, that whole scheme is going to change. So giving feedback to that, to like a temporary thing like that, is pretty hard. But when it comes to the Atlas, the three things I talked about, which are more efficient layouts, the agency and endgame, and then also full Atlas rework, are my biggest concerns. I have high hopes for this, really looking forward to what's going on. And yeah, tomorrow from whenever this video comes out is going to be the reveal. I will be streaming it over on twitch.tv/Palsteron as always. And we'll be talking about it in the next 3 weeks leading up to the release. We'll see how that goes. I don't know when they're going to release the patch notes. I hope it's going to be soon, but we'll have to see. Probably going to be a lot of changes in the next 3 weeks to come. And yeah, I'm really excited getting back into the PoE2 mode. But with that being said, since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.